Hello and welcome to the Foxcatcher Review Show. My name's Julian Valence, joined in Sydney by Nick Ashman. How was the weekend? You got through it okay, my friend?
We got through it okay. We had a good winner out there, Glorious Moments, got the job done for us. The other two, unfortunately, didn't, despite being well backed. Good to see Randwick. I thought it played pretty well on Saturday. I think 6 or 7 of the 10 races were run at an above-average tempo, so good to see a nice, fair track. Horses could win from pretty much anywhere on Saturday. Going forward, I think there's a couple of horses that we can follow. So I'm looking forward to dissecting it all with you right now, my friend.
Beautiful. Let's get into the track intel. So we were Randwick. We're out 11 metres from the 1,000 to the post, out 8 metres the remainder of the track. Now, worth noting, it was a soft 6 to begin with, but did get downgraded to a soft 7 after race 4. How did that intel go? Because I think you were just about bang on the button.
Yeah, that's right. It was through the middle was the core. We said you wanted to be in lanes 3 to 7 on Thursday's preview show, and that you didn't want to be more than 3 wide coming around the bend, which isn't always the case at Randwick when you want to be off the rail. Here's the stats for you. 8 of the 10 winners in lanes 3 to 9. 9 of the 10 winners were in lanes 1, 2 and 3 around the bend. So it was the intel was pretty much spot on. I will say this, 7 of the 10 winners were more than 3 lengths off the leader at the 600-metre mark. And that's courtesy of genuinely run races. I just loved Randwick on Saturday. I thought it played brilliantly.
Yeah, that's very good. I mean, we don't get that kind of rail position too much at Randwick, so this is one where we'll have to put it back into the file, get these conditions again. It's probably going to be another 12 months till we get something similar like this when the rail's this far out and on a soft track that's been downgraded. So this is the time, this is the reason why we do present this information for the viewers out there, is to say, okay, the next time we see this position, this rail position and this kind of conditions track, maybe this is what we need to look for and the horses that might be suited. So you might have to bank this one for a while, maybe 11, 12 months, but we'll probably get it again sometime soon in terms of next year with these kinds of conditions. That's the track intel for Randwick this week. All right, mate, let's get to the hen house. Let's get to the races that we thought, or you thought, were strong. We've got a few at Randwick, and then you've gone sideways as well, which I really enjoy because there's winners everywhere. They all pay the same. But kick us off, you found this horse, and geez, it was impressive. It was an outstanding performance to the eye, but it looks like to you that the time backs it up as well, and I start with race 4.
Yeah, this is Glorious Moments. He looked the better of the day going into Saturday. He just had a bit of sexiness about him off what he did first up at Canterbury. We spoke about on the preview show how he raced right through the line and was pulling away from him first up at Canterbury. What about Saturday? He didn't just pull away from them. Yeah. He absolutely spanked them. He wins by 4 1/4 lengths. Overall time, almost 1.5 seconds inside standard time or 9 lengths ahead of or above standard. This pace was really fast here. So the leader's gone out pretty quick. That was Cougars. Cougars was, almost 10 lengths above standard through that first 700 metres. And then from there, it just became a case of, well, we know the best horse is going to win this race because you're going to have to run the fastest overall time. And Glorious Moments was head and shoulders above them. He was second up in essentially his second preparation, his second run as a gelding. He ran a peak figure by a fair bit first up at Canterbury that we referenced on Thursday. And now he's gone to a new level again. I want to point out this. He went through the first 700 metres more than 5 lengths above standard. So even though he was well off the pace, settling 5th, it was a distant 5th as well, he was still going well above standard. And then every section from the 600 metres home, every single one of his splits was still above standard. Even though they weren't electric, they was still above standard. So he's now shown that ability to absorb pressure. He reminds me of a horse like Celestial Legend. He's that type of horse. He's trained out at Randwick from a smaller stable, Celestial Legend with Les Bridge, this one with Jim and Greg Lee, who are even more unknown than Les. His last 1,000 metres on the day was ranked 4th for the entire meeting. Even his last 200 ranked 11th for the day, which off that tempo is pretty good. So this is a really good race, one that I think you can follow. Look, Signor Tortoni has had, what's he had now? He's had, I think, 3 runs back from a spell. He won his first 2 starts this preparation. He's had 4 runs back from a spell. He's won 2 of his runs this preparation. He's run into what could be a real star. He's probably one you can keep following. Codetta, she's pretty good as well for Michael Friedman, who's having a good run at present, but all honours with the winner, Glorious Moments. He's a definite group horse in the making.
Okay, so this is the next point I'm going to get to. So he's absolutely monstered him. I love the fact that, as you said, and you've perfectly outlined it for the viewers there, that this is a fast run race. So to still be able to come home so good off these fast run races. It just about sort of stamps that this horse could go anywhere. I mean, is there a sneaky handicap Group 1 race that this horse could be a bit of a player in the spring, or what do you think they're going to do with him?
I don't think, 3-year-olds typically don't target. He'll be a 4-year-old come next year. So he could go towards an Epsom maybe.
Yeah.
Whether or not that comes too soon for him, I don't know. He's returned as a gelding this prep. The Epsom's not until first week of October. We've got a fair way to go until we get there. Look, if he was mine, I'd be going towards a Doncaster. I'd be looking to get his benchmark rate or his domestic rating up so he can sort of get into the Doncaster nice and easily. The other option is, and this is a little bit left field, is to give him one more run this prep at the mile in, a benchmark 84. I think he'd win that without a shadow of a doubt. And then just give him a short break and bring him back for the old Villiers, the Ingham, because that's a win and you're in to the Donny. And he wouldn't have been overly taxed in this spring or winter/spring campaign. You have, 2 or 3 runs in the summer, and then you come back and go into the Doncaster third up with that little bit of residual fitness. So there's a few options there for him. I just, if they can keep him together, they might even back off him now and give him 5 weeks between runs and come back to a 1,300-metre race. It was such a fast run race on Saturday. He could maybe sort of, have a few weeks between runs, and that gives him his chance at an Epsom handicap. But it's a long way to go from where he was at Canterbury first up to an Epsom in one prep. I'd be looking at just trying to tick a few more boxes, build the confidence, build the domestic rating, and then make next prep his prep to shine. Beautiful.
So Glorious Moments, race 4, absolutely annihilates the clock. Let's get to race 7. You like this race as well?
Yeah, Lug was the winner here, benchmark 78. So overall time he was pretty slick as well. 1:18.9, about half a second inside standard time. Last 400, 24.3, 12.3. This Berry Mar combination's looking pretty good. Striking at 22% from just 32 combinations, I guess you like. They're beating market expectations by 37%. So pay attention when Kieran Maher puts Tommy Berry on his horses. We were obviously keen on Little Cointreau. We'll talk about that runner in a few moments' time. But getting back to Lug, this was a good performance. 8th fastest last 200 metres of the day, 7th fastest last 1,000 metres of the day, 2.5 lengths or 0.4 of a second inside standard time. Good performance from Lug. This horse was only having its second run back from a spell. It had in its first preparation, Jules, it won its first 2 starts at Kembla and Goulburn, and then Kieran and Dave back then, whipped him down to Melbourne to run in that 1,800-metre race that Vow and Declare beat Junipal in a few years ago. And on this occasion, he took on Riff Rocket, who, of course, will go on to win the VRC Derby and then later the ATC Derby, and was a very good horse. He was beaten in that race. He had excuses in that event. He sort of was terrible out of the barriers. He had about, I think it was about 470 days off.
Okay.
And then he returned as a gelding last preparation, had one run at Newcastle in January, was spelled immediately. I think they this is what I was talking about with Glorious Moments. When a horse has a long prep and has issues, it's quite good just to give them a nice kind prep when they come back and then take stock and then hit the big time after that. This is the horse that's ready to sort of step up now. I'm not saying he's a Group 1 horse. His first up run was a bit indifferent at the Kenzo track. Don't know what to make of it, but his run on Saturday was pretty good. He's one of few runners to get the cash from up on top of the speed, and he's done a good job. He's beaten his peak figure by about 3 lengths on my stuff, and I think he's definitely a horse that you can follow.
Beautiful. Race 7 goes in the hen house as well. And last one from Randwick actually was in the last race. You like this race also, Nico?
Yeah, the benchmark 78. Johnny Travolta gets the cash here. Chris Waller, Jason Collett. He's absolutely smashed his peak figure. So the reasons this race was overall time was identical to the fillies benchmark 78 over the 1,800 metres on the same day, a few races earlier. The difference is this race was even slower. It was still fast, but the fillies, they absolutely bolted out in front. If you stop the division at the 600-metre mark, there was lengths between the two of them. So the fact that the boys have been able to catch up, I think, is a real positive sign. Travolta, just on him, what's interesting for him is he's a European import in just his second Australian preparation. Quite often these Euro imports go to a new level in their second prep. It was his first run beyond a mile since arriving down under, and it was the fastest tempo relative to benchmark figures that he's contested since being in Australia. And here he is running a peak figure that is way above anything we've seen from him in the past. So, yeah, the SP wasn't really there. It was around that $8 to $10 mark. But I think given that the circumstances of Saturday's race were vastly different from what we've seen in the past, I reckon you'll see a tight SP for him next start, and he might be a horse that we can follow when he gets out to 2,000 metres and beyond.
Beautiful. I think they'll trust that figure for Travolta. Now we go to Kembla Grange. Now, obviously, it was on Saturday as well. You've got a race here at Kembla Grange you want to identify for the viewers.
Yeah, look, as you know, I do a fair bit of work and form for proven thoroughbreds, the good guys there, and they've had a host of good horses over the year, like Think About It and Private Eye. This horse here, Wild Thoughts, I know they've had a bit of an opinion on it, and they've asked me to sort of screw down his figures. And he went to Kembla on Saturday, and they sort of said, look, we think he's pretty good. We're keen to know what you think. Now, if you go and watch the replay of Wild Thoughts, you'll see that he camps well back and just ambles down the centre part of the track. He had to chase a bunny in front, but I think it worked for him. He was the only horse making ground from the back. Overall time, almost 1.25 second inside standard time. Faster overall time, but more than half a second than the Class 1 on the same day. And I just think knowing what they think of him and then seeing it on Saturday, looking at the figures, I think you can follow this guy. I think he might measure up to some pretty good races in the next few months. So I'm expecting Kerry Parker and the team to bring him to town, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him end up in group races in due course.
Love that one from left field. So that's the hen house this week. Randwick and also maybe a budding star from Kembla Grange. Righto, for every good, there is a bad. Doghouse, my friend, from Randwick. Couple of races here you want to look at. Race 3, you're a little bit worried about going forward.
Yeah, I should put myself in the doghouse after getting home a bit late there on Saturday night. So, but I'll stick with the equine breed for now. Race 3, full of sincerity. The two horses that are in the doghouse, or the two races in the doghouse, is just because they went really fast. Now, overall time for Full of Sincerity, the race was still 1.5 seconds inside standard time. But the issue here is that they really crawled home. So the reason why this race and the next one go in, they were home in 26 seconds for the last 400 metres and 12.8 for the last 200. So even though, yeah, sure, they've shown that they can run a fast overall time, they've been given every opportunity to do so. And I just think a few horses out of that event will go flat at their next run. Then we move on to race 6, 3 races later, Investment. We spoke about that 1,800-metre race that one of our hen house horses won, Travolta. Well, this was the fillies version, and Investment took this one out. The overall time here, I just think, sorry, the Full of Sincerity was the other 1,800-metre race.
Yeah.
And in comparison to Travolta, they ran the same overall time off a much hotter tempo. Going to Investment now in race 6, this was still inside standard time. Last 400 metres, 26.9.
Yeah,
last 200, 13.7. This is disgusting areas for horses to be in. Like, you know, these horses were basically going backwards up the straight, and it was just a race to see who would go the slowest. I don't really want to particularly race 6 follow anything out of that going forward. I think there's going to be a few sore heads on Sunday, Monday, maybe even Tuesday morning. I'd be very wary about backing horses out of that, particularly those that are up on top of the speed.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And especially we talk about this a lot, that, you know, if a horse was on a quick 7-day back up off this, or even 2 weeks in between runs, you just think the flatness has to come with a 13.7 last 200. Like, they're just not pushing through the line at all. So it's a really good point. I think it's a good point just for the overall factor when you see these races go really fast and they're inside standing. You go, great, they've been able to run a time, but that last section is concerning, especially for the next start. So, look, maybe you see these horses in 3 weeks or 4 weeks again and you'd think they'd have recovered, but anything within sort of the 14-day timeline for me, you want to be really wary, and especially if they're at the pointy end of the market. So that's the doghouse. Very good. Well done. Hits and misses, mate. PointsBet trading floor. There's a few here, so they'll come up on a list. I think there's about 8 or 9 that we've identified, maybe 8. Was there any specific ones that you wanted to just pick out of that? I mean, the viewers can see all those moves, and you know, sometimes it can be for a variety of reasons, whatever it might be. But were there any in particular that you thought, well, let's not drop off this, or this horse was backed for a certain reason and we can drop off it?
I'll just talk about Little Cointreau because he was in our bets for the day. Look, the reason why the market gravitated towards him, I didn't think he was ever really a $4 chance in the race, but I think because we saw so many back markers winning on Saturday, horses coming from off the pace, they thought, okay, great, he gets his chance and he's on a 7-day backup. I reckon the market thought that the pace of this race would be run a bit faster. Lug, who was going to be up on top of the speed, got a much softer run than anticipated. They went a fraction below benchmark through that first section, which is 700 metres on Saturday. And I reckon the market had that pace being maybe a fraction quicker, or maybe they just thought that Little Cointreau could settle a little closer. I think what's happened here, Jules, is that let's just say the market didn't think the pace was going to be much quicker than what it was. They thought Little Cointreau could settle a bit closer. Given he was on the 7-day backup, he probably wanted a bit more tempo. He's probably just caught a little flat-footed here on the 7-day backup. Yep. These horses were able to quicken in front of him, and he just wasn't able to ping them down in the home straight. His overall figure was still a length above benchmark. You've got to remember, Lug was one of the horses that we identified to follow out of race day on Saturday because he ran good figures. So the fact that Little Cointreau was beaten 2 lengths by him still suggests that Little Cointreau has gone well. I don't necessarily want to follow him going forward. Deep in a prep, 7-day backup. I've probably had enough of him for this preparation. Now that I've said that, he'll come out and you know what in.
It's a really good point, because I'm going to talk about it when we get to Hutchie and the Victorian horses. Is these 7-day backups, and especially as you say, deep in the prep, they're just hard to be with. I always think like when you're deep in your prep and then you go 7-day backup, it's just about end of prep run for me. And sometimes it can be their peak run, and then it's hard to tip them out after that. But as you said, the horse has gone okay and gone pretty good, and it's just been beaten by a better one. But whether you then want to delve into it and whether the market wants to smash into it again off, say, 2 weeks off that 7-day backup, I'm always really wary of it. And I think the market is as well. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens, whether this horse does go to the paddock or they do give it one more. And if they do give it one more, I'm going to be fascinated to see what the market does with it. That's the hits and misses for this week. All right, let's get into the Foxes then, mate. Let's see some horses that we want to be with. I think I've got a fair grasp of what you might want to go with, but kick us off.
Yeah, look, it's line and length here from if you've been watching up until this point. Apologies as well. Glorious Moment goes in. He's well above average, and you know, in that race, his last 200 metres was still a length above average or a length above standard. Everything else was 3 lengths or worse below because they just couldn't absorb that pressure. He's shown that ability. Only top-grade horses can do that. So he's probably a group horse in the making, or I think he is. Travolta goes in as well, just because even though we hadn't seen that from him before, we hadn't seen those circumstances presented to him before. Now that he's got them, we know, hey, he loves a fast tempo. He loves a bit of ground, sort of 2,000 metres up around that distance and beyond. Stick with him if he gets a similar shape race over a similar distance in the future. And the horse that I think, you know, going into Saturday, Glorious Moments was the horse we were spruiking. He's now proven himself. Wild Thoughts is the horse that I'm now spruiking. I think you'll find at his next run, he'll prove himself to be a group horse in the making as well.
Beautiful. There's 3 horses we can follow with confidence from Nick Ashman from the New South Wales area. We're done and dusted, my friend. Beautiful. I'll see you Thursday for the preview.
100%. Keep an eye on the socials. I think I've got a good one for you on Wednesday as well.
Oh, bang. Absolutely. Might even be able to round off the account. We'll see you then. See you, pal.
See you, mate.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.